So now we want to make quads. So we'll marquee select this edge so that I can select the one in the back. This one. Actually, I don't want to do this one. Well, yes, this one. We want to do these because we want the highest point. So we'll delete that. Then we can manage these later. So now we want to give this more this type of look. So we'll select all these vertices, pull them up, select these, pull them up, select these, pull them up. Now this is starting to look like this. We're probably gonna need it a little bit more. There you go. What we want to do is just easy, simple. Delete all these faces. And then go into edge mode, select all these faces, all these edges, and then mesh, fill hole. And it'll fill the gap. And then we can just shift right click to multicut or press multicut over here. Select that vert, go around, select this vert, and done. And that looks pretty good. And if you want to make all this quad, a simple way to do it is if you grab the multicut, you click here and here, we cut everything through the middle. From here to here, cut everything through the middle. We use a tool called Target Weld. And then we'll merge this one over here, this one over here. And then delete these. We do the same thing here. Mesh, tools, edit Target Weld, merge these vertices here, and delete these edges. So now we have 4 sides, 4 sides, 4, 4, 4, 4 everywhere. And this is a clean mesh. Now I want to delete the history. So edit by type. Delete history. So now that we have this, press D, go up. So I want it in the Y, shift. And when you get the position Y, press it and press D back again. So now we have our cone. And then and this transform, sometimes you get left behind with transforms, and if you delete history, sometimes it still stays behind, so you just have to delete it. So then this is going to be called SM front arc. So now we'll bring everything back, and I want to snap this to 0. So I'll press X and bring it down. There you go. So now we have an arc and all the walls. So now that we have this, I'll add all the walls. Now we're gonna create our roof. So this roof, it's easy to make if you take geometries that you already made to create this. There's another tool that you could use. You select the faces, and then there's a tool called Edit Mesh Duplicate. So then you get this. So now, if you take a look at your outliner, you're gonna see 2 separate polygons, the original one and the one you created. So we want to unpair these 2. To unpair, you just press Shift P. So Shift plus P on parents. And this is gonna be SM Dealing. Ooh, made a typo there. And now I'll copy this name, delete transformation on both, on parent, delete the group, and rename this back again. It's so frustrating how Maya does this. I have scripts that all that I just did makes it in one button, but you need to learn how to get around it and renaming stuff and unparenting stuff, because it's really important. So now that we have both, I'll hide my ceiling, my arc, and now I'm left with this strip. We have half of it. So what we want to do is grab the edge, select it, and then we can pull it back. And then we want to measure it with our big wall. And so I'm going to rotate it and measure it. And I know Vertex that this ceiling extends more than the actual one that we have. So what we want to do is grab this and extend it a little bit forward. And this looks okay. So now that I have this, I'll use modify center pivot, so the pivot can come up. Then I'll press D, and then I'll press V, and I can grab, if I want to do it in all 3 axes, I'll just grab the circle and snap it to that vert right there and press D. So now I'm gonna work on one side, so then when I'm done, I can just duplicate, and then if I want to bring that side to the negative side, all I need to do is come to X and -1, and I have 2. That's why I'm only working on one side first. So now let's give it a shape. If I want to modify, I'll come to one of these views. The front seems okay. I'll turn off my grid. And then I could do it manually. But there's another tool that you could use. You press B on your keyboard, you go into a tool called Soft Select. And if you open all your tools, it's going to be right here, Soft Selection. You can enable it here as well. So what Soft Select does is that basically that has a drop off, and you can set that drop off by pressing B and middle mouse drag or scroll and increase the brush size. And then I just want to have that up to there, that I have my fall off. I want to select everything until I have black is like almost no influence and yellow is full influence. So now if I pull back, you see that I start getting that arc. And if I want this to have more influence, I'll select 2 vertices instead of 1. And you can see the arc forming. And then my final tweaks, I could press B again to disable it. And then I'll just add whatever I want. I'll tweak to my needs. And then if you press the front, you can see. And then in the back, what we want to do in the back is you come to the reference image. We need to give it this form, this shape as an arc. And as well, at the end, luckily we have 2 perspectives. So we can see that it does an arc, but then it pans out at the end. So we're gonna do the same thing. So the way we're gonna do this is if we come into over here, I'm gonna do the insert edge loop tool, get the options, and I'm going to insert at least 2 to start. So what I want to do is I want to grab all these vertices at the back, scale them in so that we have a straight line, press V, and then we grab the edge and we align it to the middle. Now that we have that, now let's create the drop off, the arc. So what I would like to do is I'll come into the front view and then I'll press B in my keyboard and then leave B and middle mouse drag to increase the radius and start bringing it in. And then I'll disable it and then I'll just manually finish it off. And we're gonna have a nice curve that we could work with. And I'm just moving in one axis because it's easier to control. Now that we have this, what we need to do is grab the top vertex, press V, increase the radius, and start dropping it down. That way, we start getting that curve, and we still need to start tweak it more, because what you're doing is basically sculpting the form that you actually need. So this is what we're gonna do. We'll start massaging these areas. I'll press B, grab it, and start bringing it in. Reduce the radius and start molding it. So now it's time to add more edge loops. So I'll press right click, shift right click, and then add another edge loop here. I'll add another one here. And then go into vertex mode and start and keep molding until I'm happy with the form that it's getting. You can see taking form already. You can see the form of the roof. So now I'm pretty happy with my form. I have to mirror it to the other side. But in order to do that, I have to grab all the vertices that come along the middle and scale them in so that they're all straight. So when you merge, it stays, it can actually merge all the vertices in the middle and you won't get an error. So then after we have this, I can still add more, just a couple more, so that I can come to the side view and actually give it that little arc hunch that it has up here. And I'll do that with manually. And it's just bringing up the vertices. Now that I'm happy, except this one, we want it to have a flow, and I'm missing one over here so that I can bring it out a little bit more. So now that we have this, now we can actually create our mirror. Just gonna mold this. If you click on an edge and then you move to a further edge and you shift and double click, it'll select all the edges in between. That way you can move a lot of edges and vertices at the same time. This is done with faces and vertices and vertex as well. So you move them. And then if you're pretty happy, there's another tool that will actually smooth this out. Maya has its own sculpting tools. So if you come into the sculpting tab, or if you press shift and right click and you go into sculpt tool, it's the same thing. You click this one right here, which is relax vertices. You can see it'll move the vertices and it'll relax some of these vertices for you, so that your geometry looks more well distributed. I won't recommend doing it on the edges. Sometimes it'll move your edges. There's another one, the smooth tool, but this one will actually break your geometry. So now that it's smooth, you come and verify that everything is straight. And now we can Press D on the keyboard, do Control D to duplicate it, and we have two pieces of geometry. So what you want to do is grab one of them and scale it in the negative, so -1. So now we have a roof. So what you want to do is select both of them, right click, combine, or if you come into mesh, combine, and it'll combine it into one. Now we'll go into vertex mode, select all the vertices, shift right click, merge vertices, merge vertices. Or if you go into edit mesh, is merge, which is the same. And if you press 3 on the keyboard, you see that everything is merged correctly. So now what you want to do is keep aligning and making it look more straight. If you come into the views, every time you select, if you marquee select a vertex, it's going to select on both sides. So when you move something, you move both vertices at the same time. So this is what we want. So after optimizations and moving vertices around, you're gonna be left with, I already created another one, which is this one. Which is the same. This one I took more time in sculpting it and molding it how I want it. So I'll delete this one and then keep the other one. But it was the same process. And SM roof. So now I have this and go into another view. The only thing I didn't do on this one was the little hunch. So what I'm gonna do is I'll do that now. Press B on the keyboard, select these two and increase the radius and move it a little bit up. And now we have an actual roof. Then after you complete this, you need to give it thickness. The way you give it thickness is you go into face mode and double click, and this will select every single face in this piece of geometry. And what you want to do is go into edit mesh, extrude, and Control E is the shortcut. If you press Control E, it'll give you this menu. And then you have a couple of options. The offset will offset all the faces in, and thickness is what you want. It'll add some thickness to your geometry. You gotta be careful in areas like this. There's another, which is Z offset. So when you have tight vertices like these, Z offset is actually a bit better. So you can also do it through the gizmo. So if you grab the Z axis, you can pull it out. Same thing if you do the X or you do the Y. And then this little gizmo here will put the gizmo, the whole gizmo in the middle, and then you can scale in or scale out. But that will give you different variations. You can test different ways to extrude. So in this one, I'm just going to extrude a little bit out. And then afterwards, you see that we have this has to be flat because the roof is laying flat. So what we want is go into Vertex Mode, go into any of the views, select all the vertices that correspond to the bottom part, or you could select this face, and if you double click on the next face next to it, it'll select the rim, and then you control Marquee select what you don't need, and then what you want is press the scale tool and then scale it down. And if you go into one of the side views, you're gonna see it's completely flat, and that's what we want. So now the roof is complete. And now we gotta see what we got so far. We got all the walls. If we go into our reference, we got all 4 walls. We have the roof. Now what we need to do is these beams, which are support, and we're going to attack these on the next video.